Have you ever wondered how your estate plan and your long-term care plan is connected to your retirement plan? By the end of this video, you will gain clarity for your personal retirement plan and have action items to secure your retirement.
To learn more about securing your retirement and all the different elements you need to know, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to be notified when we post a video every Monday. We have helped hundreds of our clients gain clarity and get on the path to a comfortable and happy retirement. Now it's your turn. Let's dive in.
Welcome, everybody. We appreciate you listening to our Wind Down podcast. This is one of our favorites. And today we have some special guests with us. So we've got obviously myself, Merce, and Morgan, who we're on all of the Wind Downs. And then we have Norm and Carol Kelly. And then we have Al McCleary. And along with them, we have Jax and Cindy Robertson. So we appreciate you all coming on and giving us your thoughts and insights and questions that we can talk about when it comes to retirement and all the things around retirement. But there is one very, very important part of Wind Down, and that is the wine. And so Morgan, she is our resident wine person when it comes to this. She's the one who picks the wine, and she can give us the breakdown. So Morgan, can you tell us and all our listeners what our wine is?
Absolutely. This week we picked the Three Finger Jack, and this is a Cabernet Sauvignon from California. It's Lodi, California, which is east of San Francisco. It has a really cool story behind it. Three Finger Jack was a legendary outlaw, and he had a reputation for roaming California during the gold rush in search of riches. So it's kind of a cool story, and I think it's a pretty good wine. I've enjoyed it. Oh, and the bottle, you can't kind of miss it on the shelves at the store either. It's shorter and a little squattier.
So what do y'all think?
I'm enjoying my glass.
By tasting, I was prepared for being hit by a truck because it's a Cabernet Sauvignon, but it's really very good.
It's very good.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty, it's lighter than your average Cabernet.
Yeah.
We typically drink Pinots, but I think this is smooth as can be. So I think it's the squatty bottle that Morgan just put up doesn't do it justice, I think.
Wow. It looks like port when you see the bottle initially. That's all the port comes to those kinds of bottles, but good.
Yeah, it's rated. It's got a 92-point rating on Wine Enthusiast right now. So
All right. Very cool. Never heard of it. Of course, a good reason to name a bottle of wine after a three-fingered guy who was a pirate? All right.
Yeah, he was an outlaw
An outlaw.
during the gold rush.
Very good.
All right. So we appreciate having you all with us today. And then the Wind Down, for all of our listeners, the Wind Down is really just a conversation for us to talk about different things that we're dealing with when it comes to planning for and living through retirement. So I asked ahead of time before we had our guest on if they had any points or thoughts. And so we're going to all just have a conversation around it. And so one of the topics that came back was this idea of long-term care and how to plan for it. And kind of more the question or the comment was around kind of like this sudden thing that happens. And Merce and I in our practice, we've had that occur where everybody's going fine, everything's going great, and all of a sudden a health issue occurs and life changes, and that's possible. We can't outthink that. That's just a possible thing. So I'll open it up. Are there any thoughts or questions that you have, or things that you've done, or the things that you're thinking about when it comes to that kind of a scenario as you get into retirement, when it comes to long-term care planning or concerns around that?
Yeah. Tons of questions on that, by the way. Of course, we're going to get in ill health somewhere along the way, needing some kind of long-term insurance, I think. And I think way back when I signed up with you all, one of the first things you mentioned to me was, "Are you ready for retirement?" I think I said, "Yeah." And you said, "You got long-term care." And I thought it was interesting. That was the very first question in terms of insurance. That was the very first question you all asked us. Now, I did have it, which was kind of good, and in fact, it's 20 years old now, the policy that I have. And I think on one of your podcasts, you all had someone on talking about long-term care. And I think you also talked about other kinds of policies that you can get, some sort of annuity, long-term care package. And that's one of the things that I was hoping you might want to talk about again, is that if you've got a long-term care program, should you give any thought to going out in our 70s and trying to evaluate something new? And it's from premium standpoint and all of that, I'd be real interested in knowing that.
So one of the things that we've had here recently, and this is just, okay, so if you think about long-term care insurance, it's not been around that long.
Mhm.
It is a relatively, in the concept of insurance, it's a new type of insurance. And the idea here is that you're covering something, and an insurance company has to, they're trying to cover exposure, and they're not, what insurance companies work off of is what's called experience. And so they're trying to say, hey, how do we pay for this? And then what we found is that a lot of the experience of insurance companies have been very negative. And so they've been raising premiums. And we've had conversation after conversation with clients saying, hey, my premiums are going up 20 and 30% a year. And what do we do with that? And some of our clients that have long time policies, we say, don't do anything, keep it. Because even going up 20 and 30%, it's not that bad of a thing. But in today's terms, yes, there are hybrid policies. There's policies that give you life insurance as well as cash value, as well as long-term care protection. But to answer your question, the way you posed the question there, Norm, is to say, looking at it in your 70s, I would say you would not, very likely not want to drop an old policy that you've got to look for a new policy.
Yeah, agree.
That's probably not, that's not going to be a good scenario, because the policy premium is going to be so high. And if you've got an old policy with rich benefits, you definitely don't want to drop those.
Yeah. Okay.
Merce, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, long-term care is such a difficult topic to tackle, because part of it is insurance, right? And insurance is always difficult because it's, well, how much risk do I want to transfer away from myself? So the question of life insurance is saying, well, I need to buy this life insurance policy in case in the event that something happens to me, that there is some funds that are left over for the family or for my heirs or whatever it is. Long-term care is very similar in the sense of, am I willing to take the risk of paying for long-term care myself, or am I going to transfer it over to an insurance company? And so there's a few ways to handle that. One is, Norm, what you've got, the traditional long-term care policy. And like Graydon was saying, we've seen the increases over the past 10 years. We've had the conversations with clients in that, it's my policy went up, my premiums went up 15, 20% this year, and it did it again and again and again. And while that hurts, while that is expensive, once we look at the cost of what long-term care is, it's sometimes you have to look at it from the insurance perspective as well. And insurance really didn't plan for long-term care to be this expensive. And so they're trying to ramp it up to, in all essence, figure it out themselves. They had no idea how big of a deal long-term care was going to be. And now they're trying to essentially play a catch-up game, which is unfortunate for the end consumer because you got to pay for it. But I'm big on data. And so right now I've got this table in front of me that has the average monthly cost of assisted living and nursing home care by state. And so we're all in North Carolina. So North Carolina, the average monthly cost of nursing home stay is $8,060. I mean, I'm sorry, $8,060. And the assisted living side is $3,800 a month. So you think about it, and you may be paying $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a year into a long-term care policy. But if you don't have that, and you have to pay that $8,000 to $3,000 a month, well, all of a sudden, that's a very, very hefty bill. So once again, it comes back to, well, how much risk do I want to cover? You have plenty of people out there that say, well, no, I don't need insurance at all. I'm going I'm going to roll the dice. And then you have the other side of the spectrum that says, well, I don't like rolling the dice. I like to know that if something happens, I'm going to be completely covered. So, and that's the insurance route to go. While long-term care policies and premiums can be a tough thing to swallow, it's one of those things where if you never use it, you're going to hate it. But if you use it, you're going to love that you have it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the world we're in. We can't negotiate rates. We can't do anything. It's either you pay it or you don't, and you get the benefit or you don't. So it's not a fun conversation, but I would say 9 times out of 10, it makes sense. Even if you get a premium raise or premium hike, usually makes sense to keep paying it.
And one of the things I would just add is that we've thought about this as well. In addition to trying to roll the dice and decide what to do, as you just noted, MERS, if your family has a history of something, late stage disease or probability of recurrence, then it helps you think a little more differently about what you should be doing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Agree.
If I could
So-
add a point on this, we did ours probably in our mid-50s, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I don't remember there being an option for that hybrid insurance.
Yeah.
There wasn't.
And having listened to your podcast on that, that was an attractive thought to me, but we entered on kind of a low end policy, but there was something, and we kind of opted for having some protection, but then also being willing to self insure.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Is there's always with insurance a happy medium as to how much do you want to insure yourself, meaning self-insure, and then how much do you want to put off to an insurance company, and there's always that weight as to what's the right mix, and it's very individualized. Some people are like, no, I'll take all the risk, I'll take all of that. Some people are not, they don't want any risk. And then there's in the middle. So yeah, that long-term care is obviously an issue, but I think for folks that have gotten the older policies, it's certainly good to, most of the time, to keep those policies in place.
Well, along that same line, Ray, and I think you all had a real nice podcast that talked about CCRCs here in Wake County. And one of the thoughts that I had at the time, listening to the discussion, was that if you had a long-term care insurance program and you, let's say, wanted to go into a CCRC and were able to get in, there's a beneficial aspect of that long-term care insurance in that CCRC, I think, but I'm not quite sure. And
Well, yeah, I was just going to say Al McCleary, who's on our podcast with us. He's actually right now he's transitioning over into a CCRC. He's waiting for his apartment to get built, and he's watching it right now live on video as it gets happening. So Al, how is that from what you know as far as your long-term care insurance going into the CCRC?
My understanding, long-term healthcare insurance will pay for any. I don't think it pays any of our normal residential living costs, but anything beyond that, either nursing home or more an intermediate level of care, it will pay for that. We have a John Hancock policy, and they say in there, this again, like you guys, our policy's 25 or 30 years old, I don't know what, and it talks about those variations, and so we're not too concerned. One of the things that I'm looking into is a topic further down the road about using various funds directly to pay for the CCRC monthly fees or entrance fees or other things. We can talk about that later.
Yeah. So in our conversations with the individuals that operate the CCRCs, from our understanding is once you move over into, so like long-term care policies, whether it be home health care or whatever, they work off of do you need assistance with what are called 2 activities of daily living. So when you go into a CCRC, most of the time you go into it completely independent. You do not need any assistance. You do not need any care. You're just moving in. But if you go into this position of needing assistance, that's when your policy would kick in and start to pay some of those expenses. And then if you move into nursing home, obviously it's going to be able to pay some of those expenses. So the whole thing is, do I need care or not? Because a CCRC does not mean I need care.
Right.
In fact, most of them are saying when you move in, you shouldn't need care yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to get special permission to go in if you need care.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that we've talked about when we did the podcast with the CCRC person. And she kind of alluded to CCRCs can have a negative connotation because in simple terms, it's saying, hey, I'm moving into the home, or the old folks home. And, a CCRC is just another place to live, but also it has built in assisted living and long-term care. And it really just eases that transition if you were to need it down in the future. And still, just like any other policy, you would have to qualify for assisted living or long-term care to have your policy kick in. But a CCRC community is really built around easing that whole concept of, well, I'm a little bit older. I don't want to keep up with my lawn anymore. I just want to move into a community. And then, oh, by the way, if something does happen, I don't have to transition again. It's already there. It's already there built in, and there will be more expenses. But yeah, if I have that policy in place, it'll start covering it because I have the policy.
I mean, that's one of the main features of CCRC. When we did all our research, was that my mom had it, and my wife's mom had the same thing. That it is all three steps: independent living, assisted living, and nursing care, all in one place. And so it's integrated and seamless, more or less. And it makes it mentally a lot less of a burden if you suddenly discover you have to go into assisted living. It's just the next building over there. So, I mean, that's a big deal.
So I want to transition here for just a minute because I think this is a good topic. But the other topic that came up that I thought was very interesting for conversation, I just think because it's something that we run into quite regularly, is the idea around estate planning. And the thing that was submitted was this idea that, and I'll give the setting, basically the estate is being, or the parent of this is in a different state. And so now you've got siblings in different states. You've got an estate that is not in the state you live. And this idea of how do you deal with powers of attorney and being able to deal with transactions and things like that. And I think that there's two aspects of estate planning. One, our average client is thinking about their own estate planning. How are they going to deal with how their children are going to deal with their estate? And then we got the other side, which is many of our clients are dealing with their aging parents and how they're dealing with their estate. And so they'll go, hey, wait a minute, I just lived through this very difficult situation. I don't want that to be for my kids. I want to set things up to be better for my kids. So let me ask you this. Have y'all experienced anything when it comes to estate planning that has made you go, I want to make sure this is not a problem for my kids? Or like, have you had that situation at all?
I see Jackson and Cindy have a smile on their face. So
we've been going through a 2-year process of my father's estate, almost to the day, 2 years. My sister and I were co-executors. However, I live in North Carolina and my sister and my father live in Ohio. So my sister was automatically made the executor because they wouldn't allow me to do it out of state. My sister has dragged her feet for 2 years. There's been some interesting changes of beneficiaries on policies. It is still not settled. I have a lawyer now in Ohio. We don't want our kids to have to go through what I've been going through.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to make sure we've got, and I have to tell you, when I hired the lawyer and I was explaining it to them, they said, the whole beneficiary thing is a license to steal. So, because we think we know how it happened. And my father had dementia, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. If he signed something, he probably had no idea what he was signing. And so the whole thing has gotten very ugly. So
let me
we're-
just ask a question just for clarity there on your statement. You said the beneficiary is a license, or you mean the executor or power of attorney?
well, the ability to change beneficiaries
Okay.
is pretty pretty easy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's power of attorney. Yeah. So
Yeah.
power of attorney is a big issue there.
Yeah,
So-
and the thing is, my sister and I both had durable power of attorney, but we were able to act separately.
Yep.
So I put the power of attorney on my dad's policies, my power of attorney on, to be able to watch what was going on. But I think my sister used it for other purposes.
Yeah.
And I never thought to double check as the years went on to make sure nothing had changed.
Yep.
So
Right.
when my father, which is something I've now read, is you should have a beneficiary checkup,
Yeah.
once a year to make sure everything's in place.
It's a good idea. I agree.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Whatever your age is, wherever you are in your lifestyle, wherever, it's always good to know where your beneficiaries are, how you have them listed, because you go 30, 40, 50 years accumulating these assets in different types of accounts, and you kind of lose track of them at some point. And you set one up to be one beneficiary, you set up another one to be another beneficiary, and you at the end of the day, you're thinking, I think they're all this way, but then you go and look and you're like, I can't believe that this one was actually this way. And so we see it all the time. And it's something as simple as a form. Now, I know your dad had a different situation, but for the majority, I think it's very important that to realize the power of the beneficiary form and also a power of attorney. You got to really be careful about who you're selecting as a power of attorney, because they do have a lot of power where they can transact on your behalf. In your case, change beneficiaries on their behalf. So it's a huge conversation when you have that with the estate planning attorney that's going to draw that up. But there's a lot of things there that, can make or break how you intended things to go. And then maybe it doesn't end up going the way that you wanted to, but you're not there to fight it anymore.
Right.
So-
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, so one of the things that I think is extremely interesting when we talk to clients, and let's say they have 2 or 3 children, and we will ask the question, do you see any issues at all with your children? And 99% of the time, I mean, we get the other answers, which yes, the answer is yes, but most times parents just don't see their kids having a problem. They see them seeing eye to eye, and that's what I think, I've got 2 children, and you want to think that your kids are going to see eye to eye on things and they're not going to be a problem. But when you're talking to an attorney, they're going to ask you that question, and they're going to ask you from that question. And I think of it from this way. I would like to have it set up. So I'm going to what you're saying, Cindy. I want to have it set up so that there's not a discrepancy about eye to eye. It's so clear that there is no discussion. There is no, I don't have to worry that my daughter is going to say, I think dad wants it this way. And then my son is going to think that I want dad to want it this way. I want it to be so clear that there is no room for them to make a discussion over the fact. And you can do that. Most of the time, though, that is going to require probably a trust, for you to have a trust set up so that it takes that discussion out of the table, off the table.
Yes.
And I will say that giving somebody power of attorney to change beneficiaries is a huge power. I mean, that's
Right.
a huge power. So I think what it does is it comes down to the conversation of talking to an attorney. And when you talk to them, you say, look, I don't want my kids to have the pressure nor the ability to outwit the other if they needed, if that were where they were. Like, let's just make it simple. My wishes are my wishes. This is the way I want it to be. And then they don't have to think about it. And I think, by the way, of all the clients we have, most clients don't want their kids to think about it, worry about it, have the stress of it. They just want it to be simple.
Well, I have to say, I think my dad thought he had everything set. You know, he had an attorney set everything up. It's just that my sister outwitted me.
Yes.
You know, never would have thought it, but she did.
What were you going to say, Norm?
Well, I was going to say one of the things that we did is we sat with Chess. One of the cool things I thought, after we got most of our paperwork in order, we had our kids come, and we sat down with Chess as well, and we went through a number of these things and talked the same philosophy. We don't want either one of you guys to do this to the other, and one's going to be executor and so on and so forth. And we created a trust and all of that. I still don't think they understood the rationale, all of the things that took place there, but at least they were exposed to some of the issues, communication, the rest of that. I'm sorry to hear about one child messing with a beneficiary program and so on and so forth. But I guess the only thing I could say is that trust aspect, trust people kind of thing, trust your kids, plus communicate with them is the only thing that we could do that I thought made sense.
Yeah. I think one of the things that Chess, and whenever you hear that name, Chess Griffin is the estate planning attorney that we recommend a lot of times, is honestly another avenue. Now, it's not legal necessarily, but just having a letter that you write with instructions to the kids.
That's right.
But here's my wishes. And then now you kind of got to go, you know, I'm just going against what my mom or dad or my parents decided that they want to have in that, in their wishes, that you're just going to have to fight it in 100% of the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that having a good estate plan and having it very, very clear is extremely important. And Cindy, I think when you talk about your situation, it's not uncommon, by the way. I think we hear it all the time. We hear it all the time where there's siblings that just, they don't see eye to eye. They just don't want it to be the way that it is. I'll tell you another huge one, by the way, that we see quite a bit is healthcare power of attorney.
Yes.
So a parent is in a healthcare scenario, and one kid says, there's no way mom or dad would want to get off of life support. And another one's like, no, I talked to dad, and dad told me if they said that I can't be viable and I can't live on my own, I want to be off life support. And they argue, and then that it ends. But if the parent has set that up ahead of time, where they say, and they put their wishes, now it takes it off the kids. The kids don't even have to make the decision anymore.
Yeah.
So to me, healthcare power of attorney is pretty big when it comes to that. Well, we've been talking here for a little bit. Anybody have anything that's just random thoughts, random questions, random comments you want to make?
I think your podcasts have been really interesting. I just want to say that. I don't always get a chance to go in there and rate them and so on, but I've had a good time watching them, and I did pass several along. So thanks a lot.
Okay.
And one thing I wanted to add is that, you know, yes, I've read articles and chapters and books over the years about this and that and the other, and I don't have it, you know, reading it after, at my age now, reading it after a half an hour, I kind of nod off. But if you listen to people in an animated way talk about stuff, it really makes a much, much more bigger impression on you, and you tend to remember it. So that's one of the things I use the podcast for, is that. It's great.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I echo those same thoughts. I have a lot of trust in what you guys are doing for us financially and securing the financial end of it. But there's a lot of components of this whole retirement window that you've addressed. The Chess Griffin podcast, I thought, was very helpful for us, but on a variety of different subjects. It's good to be educated on things that we don't have you guys controlling too.
Yeah, Jax, if I can use you as an example, I think in one of our last meetings, you know, you just had this list of questions because you had just recently retired, right? And you're like, well, how do I do this? How do I handle this? How do I handle this? And for a lot of people, they have the same questions, and that's really the whole reason we came up with the podcast. It's been something that Raiden and I have put on the back burner for a little bit. And you know, COVID came around and we weren't seeing clients, so we wanted to make good use of our time. So we started the podcast, and it has kind of really taken off with those same questions that you're asking. We're saying, you know, well, he's got these questions, she's got these questions. Why not just start to really take those questions and turn them into an episode, and then another episode. And now here we sit today with somewhere close to 70 episodes under our belt, and
Yeah.
with no inkling of stopping at all, So it's been a learning experience for Raiden and I, but it's also been a lot of fun.
Have you got one down yet on the cure for old age?
Next week.
Yeah.
Coming in hot next week.
Oh, cool. Good.
It's that wine. It's that wine will do it.
That's right. Yeah. What we do is it's like, hey, well, let's just do the wind down and we'll forget about age and we'll just talk.
That's great.
Well, hey guys, we want to say thank you so much. We appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your schedules to come on and chatting. I know this. Here's what I know. In the wind downs, we get feedback, and the feedback is they love being able to hear from, in all essence, their peers and individuals that are in their situation. And your thoughts and your questions and your concerns are extremely common. And if I always tell people, if you're questioning it and thinking it, other people are too. So we thank you very, very much for coming on and chatting with us today.
Well, thanks a lot for having us. This was great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
We hope this video has given you some confidence and clarity as you plan for a worry-free life in retirement. But what else do you need? We have created a complimentary video course called 3 Keys to Secure Your Retirement. This video walks you through step by step what you need to do to get ready for retirement. You can also check out our podcast called Secure Your Retirement. You can subscribe below.
For more retirement tips, watch this video. Create your retirement income plan. Also, click here to subscribe to our podcast, Secure Your Retirement. If you like this video, hit the like button and be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends.